While the lofty goals established this offseason may very well be out the window for the Philadelphia 76ers, there is still work to be done on perfecting the roster for the best long-term outcome. Jared Butler has been a key part of this discussion after being traded to the Sixers at the NBA trade deadline, and it is now official that he will be a part of the full NBA team moving forward. Being upgraded from a two-way contract to a standard NBA deal, I want to reflect on what exactly this means from the Sixers' perspective, why I think this is really telling for their belief in Butler, and why he has not received the necessary NBA opportunity to this point. So to dive right into things, to start off with the Shams Charania report of ESPN, who tweeted, the Philadelphia 76ers are converting two-way guard Jared Butler to a standard 2-year NBA contract, Mark Bartelstein of Priority Sports told ESPN. Butler averaged 10 points, 4.7 assists, and 17.1 minutes over 3 games since joining the 76ers via trade last week. And to refresh our memory on what exactly that deal was, it was trading away Reggie Jackson to Washington and a future first-round pick for Jared Butler and 4 second-round picks. So there were kind of 2 key parts to this trade. Number one is obviously adding Jared Butler, who I am going to dive deeper into in a second, but the second part of being swapping that 1 first in exchange for 4 seconds. Frankly, I just think that is good business by Daryl Morey. That is more kind of things that you have to deal, and we're seeing with the new CBA, with the more flexibility that you have with a second-round pick, that it is not as landlocked to the exact dollar amount as is the case with first-round picks, that there's just more. They're worth more in terms of how much teams are desiring them. We're starting to see a swing back in the value of a second-round pick, which I do think is really interesting here. Now, to talk about Jared Butler specifically, I do want to talk about why he has not received the NBA chance to this point. And to kind of tell the full story here, first want to reflect on his college performance. Spent 3 years at Baylor, was a national champion, which is what he was so famous for, and was really impressive across all 3 of those years. That final year at college, 16.7 points per game, 4.8 assists, 2.0 steals per game. Also shot the ball very well, 41.6% from beyond the three-point arc on 6.2 three-point attempts. That's real deal volume, especially at the collegiate level there. And I will say, from watching Jared Butler at that point, I did think that this dude had every bit of the potential to be like a real deal floor general for an NBA team, that he could be a true point guard, sort of cut from that archetype, that he was a table setter for others. He had that command of an offense. He's really impressive on his change of direction. He's not the most explosive guy, but he just knows how to play basketball, man. Good things happen when Jared Butler has the ball in his hands, and we're starting to see that return to the focus here. Now, as far as why he did not get his chance overall, did we reflect on this article? This is written from Dan Oliger of the Rice Ricky Sanchez here, that I thought put this in a pretty good context here. And he says, of course, it hasn't been all smooth sailing for Butler since then. As a freshman at Baylor, Butler was diagnosed with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, a rare genetic heart condition. Though he is asymptomatic, the condition did hurt his draft stock. NBA teams are already extremely hesitant to commit prime resources to small guards, much less so with ones with any health concerns. Thus, Butler slid all the way to pick 40 and is already on his 4th team in 4 seasons now. He hasn't truly stuck in a meaningful way as of yet, but it's also clear that he's as close as he's ever been. The 7 points per game he's averaging this season is a career high, and his 15-point performance on Tuesday was essentially the only positive during the Sixers' dismal loss to the Raptors. Though it took him a long time to raise his level of play to the point where his style would work against NBA defenders, Butler is starting to look like his college self once more. His guile and tricky footwork is nearly unmatched, consistently throwing opponents off balance in order to scoop by them one way or another to the rim. And to reflect on that exact performance, which is referenced there, that in that matchup against the Raptors, this Twitter account, shout out to Wilco, tweets, good to see Jared Butler getting minutes and contributing for the Sixers. 15 points on 6 of 10 from the field, 1 of 3 from 3. 4 rebounds, 4 assists in 16 minutes tonight. Had some winning plays. I've been a fan going back to Baylor, but he's never gotten much of a run in the NBA. Not too sure why. Hope that changes. And to reflect on exactly what his opportunity level has been at the NBA here, I just want to pull up his NBA stats, that he was drafted by the Utah Jazz with that 40th overall pick that was referenced in the article there. Spent 42 games with the Jazz. Really very little opportunity there. That played just 8.6 minutes per game, so not a ton overall there. Then he spent a little bit of a cup of coffee with the Oklahoma City Thunder. Just 6 games that he logged at the NBA level. Most of his professional experience has been at the G League. Then he was with Washington, obviously, early this season. Well, he spent the full season last year and the first part of this season with Washington. That's 72 games, which is the most that he's logged as a professional. And then, obviously, we're seeing him with the Sixers now. Now, to be completely blunt here, It is kind of concerning, I would say, that on a Washington Wizards team that is among the worst teams really ever, that he could not carve out really a role for himself. But I also think a lot of that was allowing the guys, the Keyshawn Georges of the world, I mean, Jordan Poole even, they have guys that they're allowing to just kind of play with free range and seeing what happens. That's not Jared Butler. That he's very much a winning player. He's a guy that I would say can play up to a level more so than he does raise it for others. And there's pros and cons to both that. I'm not saying that's the ideal kind of, I guess, situation in the world. But what I am sensing from the Sixers organization overall is there is kind of this youthful resurgence here. And I think a lot of this has to do with the obvious concern over the future of Joel Embiid. But what I've seen from Daryl Morey this season particularly, and really dating back to this offseason, is there does seem to be an increased focus on adding these future young pieces. I'm not saying Jared Butler is this concrete part of the future. What I do think he is a totally competent backcourt player that is worth exploring what he could grow into. For the second half of the season, this is as great of an opportunity as Jared Butler could possibly hope for here, that he has not had a chance to find his footing at the NBA level. You have a clean slate of opportunity. Nobody wants to watch Kyle Lowry doing his thing on a losing basketball team, which has been the case all year. It's great. Kyle Lowry has been an all-time great guard in that conversation there, but it's really tough to watch at this stage of his career when he only does the extra stuff. It's only taking charges, shooting threes, setting the offense for others. This should be Jared Butler's role. And while Tyrese Maxey is obviously awesome, a guy that has been carrying this franchise from just about start to finish this year, particularly with all the moving parts around him, there needs to be another guy that can create on the offense, and that is what Butler can walk into. With a guy like Jared McCain completely on the shelf, out for the season, that is something that I do think the opportunity could not be more there for Jared Butler, and I think this is going to be the type of chance that he leaps at. He's still just 24 years old, and to kind of reflect, again, it is a small sample size, but to just give some of the numbers here, that he has shown some nice intriguing flashes from three. That brief, and I'm not going to dive into what a limited sample size it is. I would say I'm even going to shy away from the numbers just because of that, but I guess to give a more concrete look at the college stats, which I am buying into. I understand these are not NBA defenders, but he's shown that ability to shoot at a high-level three-point performance, that he's shown an ability to get to the rim at will, be able to take guys off the dribble. That is the type of player that the Sixers should be looking to add, and the worst-case scenario is you burn a future first-round pick and Reggie Jackson for it. If this plays out in the right way, I think Butler very well could be a guy penciled into like that third guard in that sort of rotation. We know who Tyrese Maxey is going to be. We know who Jared McCain's going to be. But what the backcourt beyond that looks like is pretty to be determined at this stage in the game. Butler is the type of guy worth taking a chance on, and he has an opportunity to earn that role. So whether or not that is the case is to be determined, but I do appreciate and respect from Daryl Morey that he continues to work the margins and improve this roster from a youth standpoint. No, that does not make up for handing Paul George the contract that he had, and I'm not going to be the revisionist history guy here. I understand I was fully in favor of that game plan, and still in theory, it does not make sense to me how bad the Sixers team has been. Once again, going into the year, I believe the floor of this team was just so much higher than what we've actually seen. I did not think there was a world where they could be this bad, but that is the reality, and I do give Morey a little bit of credit for rolling with the punches. So will be very interesting to see how this team comes out in the second half of the All-Star break here. Obviously, all the teams shut down for the weekend. Pretty embarrassing that there's not a single Sixers player representing at All-Star weekend. All we got is Jared McCain running around taking pictures with Steph Curry and doing his thing there, and all love to Jared. No shade in that comment whatsoever, but just very frustrating for a guy like Paul George, who's been a 10-time All-Star, a guy like Joel Embiid, who is penciled in a perennial All-Star, a guy like Tyrese Maxey, who broke through that barrier and was an All-Star last year. None of them in attendance for this season, and I think that about sums up the state of the Sixers team. But hopefully Jared Butler can be a little bit of a spark to at least make them tolerable for the second half of the season and watch this. That is certainly something that I'll have my eye on, but do want to hear from you guys in the comments. How high are you on the potential of Jared Butler? Is this a guy, are you like me, who believed I can't understand how he hasn't found his footing in the NBA and do think that this could be the chance, or is this a guy you think it's just a cup of coffee, we'll be moving on from next season? Drop your thoughts below, but I am a Jared Butler guy, and I do think this is a guy who there will be some interesting things done from a salary cap perspective, as I think this is likely going to be a signing for the end of this season and probably a long-term contract. One of those 4-year, really low team-friendly deals is sort of my expectation for how things go from here. But let me know what you guys think in the comments as well. As always, appreciate each and every one of you guys tuning in this video. Make sure you're smashing the subscribe button if you have not already. Drop a like, and I'll be back talking to you next time right here on Sixers Digest. Peace.